Doesn't have,
Oh, I thought it was, so is it live or recorded?
it's recorded.
Oh, okay.
But again, if you have a YouTube, it will notify you that we're live.
Oh, thank you. Would you like me to get it?
High school principal, maybe.
She wants to, don't just think of that. Cool.
She's still chatting.
Sort of.
Shall we go?
Kick it off.
Okay. All right. I'll call the meeting order. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Pinkstock? Mr. Anir?
Here.
Mrs. Song? Mr. Sharp?
Here.
Mrs. Young?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item there is to accept the agenda as presented with the, I guess I should say the amended agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
So move second. Just a second discussion.
I have discussion for that.
Okay.
I'm very concerned that every time we come, we're having multiple addendums to the agenda. And that we're getting them in a very short time frame, and every time it seems we're getting shorter. I think we need to kind of see what we can do to get back to that longer time frame, so we have time to look over them, especially not in this one, but in the ones we've had before. And there's policies you want us to read and be able to have questions. It's kind of hard when we're getting them 24 hours before the meeting.
Any other discussion?
I think it's just for hiring somebody, that's okay. I see what you're saying. That's a good point.
Okay. All right, roll call.
Mr. Anir?
Yes.
Mrs. Song?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
All right, the consent agenda includes accepting minutes from the previous meeting that were emailed. Approve the following resignations: James Justice from his position as 612 Pure Tech and business ed teacher, and a variety of other things. Sean Miller, effective immediately from the position of STEM robotics. Jordan Grove, high school math teacher, assistant football coach, effective immediately. Stephen Davis, education aide, effective immediately. Daniel Fox, high school boys reserve basketball coach, effective immediately. Sarah Royce, cook cashier, effective July 13, and Matthew Sloan, from his position as middle school intervention teacher, effective immediately. Is there a motion?
Move.
Justin moves. Is there a second?
Did you say them? Oh, second, and then
2 seconds.
discussion.
Yep, discussion.
The minutes from the previous meeting were emailed?
Yes. I'll check my email. I think it was yesterday, after we had, or morning, right before we confirmed the addendum and made sure everything was on it. But I'll double check that.
Agenda and then the addendum.
They were sent out.
Was it a separate email? It said minutes or something?
Yes. Did you get them? Okay. I'm looking for it, I'm sorry, Susan.
Thanks. I wouldn't be on, I just wanted to come in.
We can table them again if you want. I can resend them right now, and you can do them next month. That's perfectly fine. I'm not finding them quickly. I'm sorry.
Okay. Anyways, we can hold off on the minutes, I suppose, then, and just do the
Yeah, two,
resignation.
2A through G.
Any other discussion with that? All right, roll call.
All right. Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mrs. Song,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
They were sent out July 19th.
That was yesterday. Thank you for finding that. I'm sorry. I have so many emails. I wasn't.
At 10:30.
Next item, public participation. Anybody here? Looks like we do things, so I don't think any signed up. So, treasurer's report.
Okay. So we did finish the year on target for where we thought we would be. The month of June, I'm sorry, do I need to make some stuff first, or do you want me to go ahead and go into the report?
All right, we can do a motion.
Okay.
So a motion to approve, then we can do the discussion of it. Susan moves, second.
I'll second.
Justin seconds. All right, good.
So June's general fund revenues were $994,000. We have foundation. We did not have any taxes, income, or real estate in the month of June, but we did have some excess cost payments as well as catastrophic cost. Those two are related to special ed. As part of the new funding plan, the state increased the percentage of reimbursement for catastrophic costs, which did have a significant impact for us. We did receive back approximately $137,000 in reimbursements for some of our special education expenses that we had this school year. So that was a significant increase. The revenues were down slightly from last year. If you look on your 5-year board report, that mostly comes from the, so we increased in that area, but our state foundation payment, again, is less on the revenue side than we have received in years past, but we don't have the expenses, so therefore it's offset, if that makes sense. So the difference is basically in the foundation that we received. Last year too, if you remember, the state was not able to get the formula to get the distributions actually solidified until January. So they went ahead and gave us monies as they had in previous years, and then we did all the catch-ups in January through June. So this past January through June. So our amounts month over month sometimes came out a little different because we were balancing what they had done at the first part of the year. So the new funding plan came in effect July 1 of last year. The state didn't release the monies as they were supposed, as they should be by law until January 1. So then they went back and they had to balance everything. So that's why they look a little different, but that's why we did have an increase in catastrophic costs, but it still looks as appears that we received less money. But we are on track for what we were projecting in our forecast. Our expenditures were a little over $1.3 million, and total checks written were $2 million. We still are seeing a decrease in our expenditures. That again is due to the way the foundation's received, because we have less expenses than tuition because the open enrollment out and in doesn't exist anymore. It has to do with our decreased expenses to the ESC. And then also we have a lot of energy savings that I think Mr. Dick will probably talk about later in the meeting. So those expenditures continue to go down, which is good. Current balance in the general fund at the end of the year was $15,151,000 with encumbrances of about $735,000 in the general fund, and a lot of those were construction type projects. I want to say building projects related. So that was a pretty good encumbrance balance. Are there any questions on the June financials or how we finished the year?
Any idea what our encumbrances are almost $250,000 more.
than they have been.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of projects going on that are
Okay.
very expensive. And with the supply chain issues, just like, we have a purchase order in for a van that's been in there for going on 2 years now because, it's crossed 2 fiscal years, I shouldn't say for 2 years, for a year and a half because we can't get the van in. And that's, $40,000 purchase order.
Is the encumbrance basically like you have the obligation, the placeholder there, it hasn't gone out yet, but it's coming?
It's a purchase order. So
Purchase
yes, we have a
order.
purchase order
Yeah.
in place and we're waiting for the job to be finished so it can be invoiced. We don't have an invoice for it.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
and you try to, at the end of the fiscal year, you try to minimize those. So we will close a lot of purchase orders. So if we open a purchase order for, let's say, tire repair for our buses of
Mhm.
$5,000 to the tire place that we use.
Mhm.
And there's $1,500 left, we will close that purchase order and then we open a new purchase order in the next fiscal year. So at the end of the fiscal year, they should be as low as possible. But with the number of things we have going on in our supply chain issues,
Mhm.
we tend to, it's a little higher than what it normally would be.
So if you wanted to provide it, you could provide a list of what makes up that 735,000.
Yes, so those open purchase orders, yeah. Plus, we still have operational things, keep in mind, like utility bills and things, we'll have open POs for those because if we have invoices come in, we have to have a purchase order open for those to go ahead and pay those. So we do, operationally, we don't really shut down.
We don't ever have zero encumbrances. That's what you're.
Be very,
Yeah.
very unlikely.
It would be very unlikely, yeah,
Timing would have to be perfect.
but that's a very, very good question.
Okay. Any other questions related to the financial reports or discussion? Roll call, approve.
Mr. Anier?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mrs. Song?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes. Second item there is approved certificate of total amounts from all sources available. Is there a motion?
That does not have to be board approved, so that should not have had a motion before it. That is just something I provide to you to start the year off. So when we do our appropriations and we do amended appropriations, you usually see a certificate of estimated resources that come with it. Those are what I provide to the county auditor, that they check the appropriations against to make sure that our resources are more than what we have appropriated, what we've budgeted, so we're not overspending. This just starts the year. These numbers are based on the tax budget that we pass in March, if that makes sense, because that starts our revenue cycle for the year. And then as we get our grants and all that, that's what goes into our revenues. And we don't always have all of those, so it's our first, and then we'll continue to amend that as we amend the appropriations throughout the year. And that came in the email with the minutes as well. So I'll send it to you again, so you have it, but it's not something that you need to approve, it's just, I like to provide it to you so you see it.
Well, from there, we'll move on to superintendent reports.
All right. I would like to recommend we approve certificated contracts for 2022, 2023, 6 through 12 school counselor Joanna Scheit, 6-12 school counselor Lisa Knight, middle school science teacher AJ Hutchinson.
Is there a motion? Robin moves. Is there a second? Two seconds. Discussion?
I still believe we have 4 certificated employees that we need to fund. So,
You need to hire.
yes.
Do you have applicants for them or what positions?
We have some, they're limited, 2 ISs. The robotics STEM teacher, we can find that person, and Mr. Justice's position, the career tech and business, head of business developer, so.
I guess, I know every other job says it's hard to hire people. Is that the same in teaching right now? It's hard to find teachers?
It's gonna be beautiful compared to what's gonna be in 3 or 4 years. It's gonna be bad.
And
We're having less and less applicants,
every year.
and let's just say,
And that's not unique to our district, that's
No.
all districts.
no, it's not very good.
I was just
The
curious.
supply.
Why is that?
I'm gonna be as kind as I can be, I don't know if people want to do this anymore. I mean, it's get to the point that it's, what was a profession that was honored and respected has become less. It has become much more difficult in regards to the legislative commitments. So it's not like it once was.
Right.
So I guess I can say it, since I won't be here anymore. Somebody asked about kids changing. Kids haven't changed. Parenting has changed. And that makes it very difficult for people to have 22, that we got to take care of and protect and all that. It has become more difficult.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Approve, I'd like to recommend to approve classified contracts of 2022, 2023. District Secretary Carrie Kirchner, Preschool Secretary Brandy Stewart, and Substitute Cook Cashier Angelique Klein. Substitute Education Wage Stephanie Davis for the county only. 1 year education wage for Ashley Jimno, and Cook Cashier for our position Angela Ballard at step 0.
Is there a motion? Probably moves. 2 seconds. Discussion.
And I do believe this completes our classified staff. Thanks.
Yeah.
No.
There's stuff. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I'd like to recommend to approve 3-year limited administrative contract with Athletic Director James Justice.
Is there a motion? Justin moves. 11 seconds. Discussion.
Jamie's ready to go. He's very excited. And that does not mean that the rest of them aren't, it just means that
He's amped up.
he's amped up.
Sounds good. Okay, any more discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
All right, I'd like to recommend we approve supplemental contracts for 2022, 2023 school year. High school assistant class play advisor drama club Amelia Harris. Team leader K-5 special education. Co-share between Bethany Herron and Amanda Ward. Fall game manager Jennifer Blosser. And high school yearbook advisor Amy Fairfield.
Is there a motion? So moves. Second. Robin seconds. Discussion.
I think we'll always have supplementals ready to be filled, so.
Yeah. Right.
Do you want to do the rest of them with this?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
The board is offered the position of high school golf, high school assistant football coach, high school boys reserve basketball coach, and high school auxiliary band advisor to those employees of the district who have a license, and no such employee qualified for those positions except further. These positions were advertised as available to any individual with a license who is qualified to fill them and is not employed by the board. High school golf coach Travis Stone, high school assistant football coach Jacob Parker, high school boys reserve basketball coach Jacob Davenport, and high school auxiliary band advisor Natalie Stoltz.
Now is there any discussion, any additional discussion? All that.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah.
Glad you did it.
I did the same thing. I got.
I did too.
So, do we have an 8th grade football coach?
We hired him last meeting.
That was mine.
Mr. Cass, we hired Mr. Castley at the last meeting, so.
All right.
So to answer your question, yes, we have.
Yes, good. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve the volunteers for 2022-23 school year football: Scott Affolter, Jordan Leisure, soccer Amanda Hamlin, and Jason Rich.
Your motion. Robin moves. Second. Sue seconds. Discussion.
I thought this the other day when we were trying to get people, a lot of these volunteers pay money to do this. I mean, it's not it doesn't go unnoticed or unappreciated in the fact that many of these people have to have pay to have so many things done. So I do appreciate them willing to do that.
Just tried to hear him back.
Yes.
Just to ask, Mr. Rich, like, I know a lot of these volunteers have to have like CPR training and the concussion training. Does the board pick that up, or is that something they all do on their own, or do they pick it up for coaches? How does that work?
They do it on their own.
Even the coaches,
Yes.
that's part of the salary?
However,
To cover that?
I would tell you, we had talked about that.
Because I know they give up a lot to coach, but they're
Exactly.
not getting paid good, just missed work hours, that type of thing.
Because it takes time to even complete, going online, and
Yeah.
it takes
Yeah,
a bit of
I've
time,
done it,
so.
it takes a bit of time.
Yes, and Lane and I have talked about multiple times, Kaz and I talked about it at one time. I think it's a conversation worth having to,
Because about how much does it cost to do all that now?
about $200 to get a coach ready.
To get all their
Yes,
certifications and everything, okay.
just in money.
Right,
That's
not in
counting
time, that's just
exactly.
in
And that's
there.
true of the volunteers and the coaches.
Well, like volunteers in the classroom do not have to have like the concussion
Oh, okay.
protocols.
So it's the paid.
Yes, the Lindsay Law, all that.
But don't these volunteers have to have that though, or is it
They,
just
like,
coaches? If
coaches.
you're in a contact
coaches-
sport, I thought even if you were a
Yes.
volunteer, you had to have it.
Like the soccer here, they would have to have it.
And like Jordan would
Yes,
have to have it, okay.
Okay.
But like a person who's coming in to help a teacher in the classroom, they don't have to have those things.
Right,
We purchased a BCI FBI machine last year during COVID because yes, he was closed so much, we couldn't get people to get their background checks. So we went ahead and went through the Ohio Attorney General's office and got our own system. And Mr. Dick and I at that time had the intent that at some point we will, because it's cheaper for us, we don't have to pay or they don't have to pay a premium fee, we can charge just what we get charged. This is about $10 cheaper than what normal people do them for. But then we can even pick up that cost because we're doing it in-house for our volunteers, but we haven't got that far yet, but intend to.
but they still have to do the CPR and all that other stuff that costs.
Yes.
Like $200.
Yeah, the BCI FBI usually costs them like 75 or 80 bucks, so
I
it's
think
a,
it was like 50, is it that high now?
it's 35, is it 35?
35 to 35, I think.
Per, yes, it's
35 and
70. So we thought, well, that at least is a good first step of defraying some of those costs for them, so.
Anything else? Thank you, volunteers, obviously, as we always say, right? Roll call.
Mrs. Song,
Yes.
Mrs. Young, Mr. Renier,
Yes.
and Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I would like to recommend we approve the salary for previously hired employees as listed below.
Is there a motion? I move. Justin moves. Second.
I'll second.
Robin seconds. Discussion.
These salaries are for people who we had approved, we did not know their steps, so this covers that.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Renier,
Yes.
Mrs. Song,
Yes.
Mrs. Young, yes, Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve the 2022-2023 school year school bus stops and designate the superintendent to make changes to bus stops as needed after initial approval by the Board of Education. There are several pages of the bus stop.
Is there a motion? Sue moves. I'll second. Justin seconds. Discussion.
This is an annual thing that we do. I tell you, we've gotten earlier and earlier with it, so I'm very happy with Mr. Lee having this out, so.
I was looking through these the other day and Kylie is going from 5th to 6th, so she goes to the earlier bus route. And I told her that her bus came at 6:54. She was rather distraught.
Never to join her classmates.
Yes, she was like,
Welcome to early adulthood.
yeah. All right, any discussion of the bus routes? All right, roll call.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Renier,
Yes.
Mrs. Song,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
All right, I would like to recommend we approve the change in the high school principal contract from 240 days to 260 days per year.
Is there a motion? Justin moves. Second. Sue seconds. Discussion.
Dr. Edwards has discussed this with you from early on. We talked about the new principal, and it kind of goes along with what most high school principals are, what the days they work. So, Doctor, do you want to add anything?
The only thing about the 240 to 260, it just outlines it a little more straightforward on the expectation and the number of days. There isn't a change in salary associated with that. It's just, 260-day employee versus 240 days. Well, what counts as a day and things like that. Also, I wanted in that part of that discussion, Mr. Dennis is back here. So if you guys have not met Mr. Dennis, he's with us tonight. So
So you're saying that going from the 240 to 260, those 20 days are going to be vacation days allotted anyway?
well, so if you take into account the holidays that a 260-day employee gets, and you have the 20 vacation days, I believe it's actually it's basically the same amount of days, work days that they have. It's more easily tracked. It's more straightforward in what the expectation is as compared to most high school principals. You have that 260-day contract.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just curious, because if you're gonna pay him the same amount, is he getting more vacation days? Like, why would he do that?
The amount of work days would be basically the same, the amount of actual days. So because of the Juneteenth holiday that was added, so you have the 260-day employees, you would have 239 work days where that was added in. Otherwise, it would have been an equal change out on the number of days that they're working.
Can we do this already? Can we do this previously?
We talked about it,
Oh, I thought.
but we didn't.
Yeah, there's no change to it. It's 6 1, half dozen the other. It's the exact same thing, except for instead of it being like, okay, pick 240 days in a calendar, he's working 260, and then he just schedules his vacation, which has to be approved by the superintendent anyway. So it's really not any different.
But it accumulates vacation.
But he'll accumulate vacation.
But he didn't before.
No, because on 240, he would have those 20 days just scheduled as non-work days.
Gotcha.
And this gets complicated because of stretch pay, and that's what makes it so different from every other industry. That stretch pay part is why it's exactly the same, because they get paid all year round regardless. And then tracking the days that they're working, when you get to certain levels, it's kind of just a pain. Where if you have a scheduled vacation, it's the same amount of money, it's the same thing.
Basically, it's going out from one direction or another instead of them letting you know which days you're working.
Yeah.
He just has to let you know when you're doing vacations. We're always doing vacations.
It just more clearly
It just comes out from
delineates
the
what
directions
the
that-
Yeah.
expectation is.
And that, like I said, the trend is all principals working 260 because we're with school starting earlier and earlier. And JB, correct me here, earlier, because back in the day, we started in September, 25 years ago, we started Labor Day. Well, now we're starting the first week of August. That window of time off is getting so, and the principals can attest to this, so short because we have summer school in here most of June.
It's better for me to be here
Yeah,
at my previous school, I was off the month of July, so it was closed, so no business took place in the month of July, which isn't a good setup. And so we transitioned to the same exact contract that we're talking about tonight. So it's something I'm already used to, so I'm able to be here when I need to be here, when kids need things like work permits and schedule changes and transcripts and those kind of things. So it kind of flexibility on when you can make those things happen. And it serves the community a little better.
And not that we were anyone to do it, but you could have someone resign July 9th, and if you're off the month of July, you could say, I'm off the month of July, and we'll hire somebody when I get back August 1st. That doesn't work. And the school said that does not work. So,
I was just curious.
Any other discussion?
Roll call.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that everybody understands too, that the stretch out brought up the fact with the principals. Their last day was July 9th, and the first day back was today. So that break is shorter and shorter. And today wasn't the first day they were back since June 9th. So I appreciate what you do. The 16th was your last day. I'm sorry, the 16th of June was the last day. So it's just a month.
And I've met with her 6 times.
Yes.
The time that she's not supposed to be here.
Not working.
So I know, thank you, do not buy groceries, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, we appreciate your dedication.
Absolutely.
It's just really hard, which goes to the question of why are educators leaving education? And summers used to be summers, and they're not anymore, because I can guarantee these guys back here, I've called them all multiple times, every one of them's answered, and they've helped when needed, when needed, and they're not getting paid to do that. And we're very blessed to have great administrators, but it's acknowledge that it's hard, because it's hard to be on vacation, to be like, I know I've called Mike Rosovich probably 20 times. That's why he chooses to go outside of cell service.
So call me.
That's why he camps in the mountains.
All right. We already did the roll call.
We did?
Yes, I know. You're right.
260.
I'd like to recommend we approve the attendance service days for 2022, 2023, for 10 days for Jonah Shipe, Lisa Knight, our 2 new guidance counselors.
Is there a motion? Ross second. Justin seconds. Discussion?
This is what we've given our guidance counselors in the past.
Are these before school or after school or just?
Combination of
some- Okay. So they're coming a little before,
Yes.
earlier and a little after the end of the year. Got it. And if I remember right, a lot of it's because of the state testing results coming in.
Test results, record keeping,
Gotcha. Okay.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
technology committee report. Susan, Robin,
You take better notes.
I typed it on the notes. Okay, so technology has been very busy, as we would expect. First thing was the camera update. We have 6 new cameras installed, 3 that basically cover playground, outside areas in the 3-5 primary, and then, or the 3-5 building, and then over at the primary. So we have a bigger look, and Mr. Rosovich can give you more details on that, but basically gives us pretty wide coverage area that we didn't have before, especially in the playground area. You could kind of see, but you couldn't really zone in on anything and really see a lot. So that was a big deal. The thing that we did talk about under the camera update though was how long do we save the data that gets recorded? Because it only records when there's movement. But Kelly is going to see if she can find out from the company how many minutes is stored on that server before it starts to re-record. Somebody said they'd gone back 2 weeks to look for something and that it had been there. So that's reassuring. Wi-Fi at the football stadium has been installed. I shouldn't call it the football stadium, they did. The athletic stadium. Wi-Fi has been installed. They did it last spring. There was good coverage everywhere except for the visitors press box, which is not a good thing because if we want to have any playoff games or anything like that, your visitor side has to have the same access as the home side does. So they're looking at putting an access point over at the visitor press box so they can have the same amenities that the home box does. The athletic hallway, they installed an access point there. And then Gym 1 has an access point, but it's not large enough to do state testing in. And because of COVID and keeping away from each other, they're looking at getting a second access point there so they would be able to do that. Gym 2 does not have an access point at all. However, Mr. Rosovich and others here said you can get Wi-Fi in there, that it's not a problem. But it would be a problem if you put a classroom of students in there and try to have them all get on that access point at the same time. Clocks, we ordered 224 new clocks. We've been talking about this for a while. Because I think these clocks are just the little dialing things on the back. It will sync with the PA system and the bell system throughout the district. So instead of adjusting every clock per classroom, every single clock will be exactly the same. I don't believe they're installed yet, but they're here and they're going to be installed. Am I right?
Yes. We'll be here this week.
This week.
They said that way kids aren't missing, like one teacher might send their kid. And then the other teachers got
Not
5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, and that's a
I wouldn't have
reason
thought of
that
that,
they need to
but-
be synced. I know. And the lunchroom the same way.
Yeah.
You don't want to send kids down there based on your clock in your room if it's different in the lunchroom.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
So that way they'll all be on the same playing field. PA system and speakers added. The Boang hallway and the kitchen storage room did not have speakers that people could hear. And it became readily apparent during our active shooter drill this past May, because they were not able to hear instructions that were being given to them. So obviously that is a safety issue. So that was taken care of. So there is now speakers in that hallway. One thing from the active shooter drill, the smoke from the gun set off the fire alarms, and then no one could hear the PA over the fire alarms. So they are working with a fire alarm company, and also, obviously, there's rules about how long that fire alarm has to be on to see if they can override it for announcements. But they're concerned if you do an override, then it wouldn't go back, and it was a manual thing. So obviously, they've identified that as a problem. They don't have the solution, but they're working on it. They have ordered a projector screen for Gym 1, 20 feet wide, same as cafeteria. They haven't ordered it, they're getting quotes on it. The quotes are for approximately $30,000 for it. The idea behind it is, again, this COVID, which is never going away, social distancing type of thing. You can put those kids in the cafeteria, it's never going away. Cafeteria. So they're tighter in the cafeteria, and if you put them in Gym 2, you can spread them out. So that's the reason for that. That brought up the discussion of the sound system and its upgrade. We've been complaining for a couple of years that in the cafeteria, you are unable to hear when there's events going on. So when there's the fall or the sports banquets, when there's the play, things like that, parents, visitors cannot hear what's going on. Mrs. Neff said sometimes the microphones end up not being where they should be, so they can't find them when they need them. And Kelly, our IT person, is going to relook at upgrading or replacing that sound system in the cafeteria so that everybody get the recognition that we are all there to witness. Smart boards, they're installing in the elementary school and the high school conference rooms. I didn't write down the size of them, they're huge. 65 inches.
That's what it says, yeah.
That
37 of those.
is taller than me, I think. So they're pretty good size. And then the smart boards, as you guys know, have an interactive display. They were paid for with the ESSER funds. So that's a wonderful thing.
And there's one here.
Right, here you go. Smart
say
board
it's
up there, no
operational.
longer white. We have the smart board. And they're installing them in room 1100, this one and the fitness room. We had quite a bit of discussion about the Chromebooks that we have. And just so you know, we have 3 brands of Chromebooks. We have Acers, but different models of Acers. We have Lenovo's and we have HP Chromebooks. So it just kind of depended on the year that they bought them, what they bought. Sometimes it was availability because of COVID, sometimes it was cost. So we do have the different ones. Kelly let us know these Lenovo's are problematic. And they, for 22-23 school year, your 7th graders, 11th graders, and 12th graders will have the Lenovo's. The problem with them is they overheat. She said they are so hot that if you take them out of the case, it will burn you. So we asked if any of them had caught on fire, because obviously we don't want to send a Chromebook home with some student who catches their house on fire. She said that she had no knowledge of any of that yet, but that they were one of the newer purchases, but last school year they lost 41 of them due to failure of the Chromebook itself. So if you are in the 7th, 11th, or 12th grade and your Lenovo, you lose it, they don't have anything to replace it with. So they'd have to replace it with something else that's a different make and model. I don't think those students probably really know the difference a whole lot. I mean, they're pretty agile with that type of thing. But we were concerned about the heat issue. And she just went over, Kelly, being she, where every single Chromebook is and what grades have every single Chromebook. I think it's on your agenda in your book. If it's not, we can copy it. And then we talked about the inventory disposal list. And I think it's grown to be excessive. But I think in the past several years, they've kind of just hoarded those things, thinking, well, we want to use those for parts. It may have a certain part that I need over here, but now they've gone through and said, we've salvaged what we can. They need to go. And I believe they went.
Not yet.
Or they're going to go, and they're going to go to the dump.
No, they'll go to a
Recycling.
recycling. Well, I'm sure somebody's gonna take parts out of it. We
Yeah,
don't
well, I
have
don't think
time.
there's any parts left, but they may find something.
But that huge list is not from 1 year.
No, it's like
I was
3
just
or
gonna
4
say,
years. It's several years.
I'm looking at the list and I'm thinking like, did we just completely
Yeah,
overhaul?
they've got them piled up someplace.
No, they had them piled forever, and they talked a couple times at board meetings about keeping them, and you can see on the list, there's iPads on there.
Yeah.
I'm like, we haven't used iPads in
No,
the
the number,
312 in a while.
Right.
They
yeah,
have
the
the
little ones
K2,
used it 2 years ago.
Right,
Until we
but-
replaced them last year.
but the ones in the K2, I don't think any of them were new. They were
Oh, okay.
parts from here that were taken to there, and then they decided after COVID that it didn't really work.
Yeah.
So those things are ancient of time.
Is that why we're not like selling these the way we do a lot of other things that we dispose of, just because of the age or maybe because of its IT? I didn't know.
Usefulness is,
Okay.
And the other thing she said, and I don't think I put this on here, but I about had a heart attack over it. I can't remember which model. Some Chromebooks, they have stopped supporting the upgrade to them.
Nice.
So it is a manual upgrade. So you have to worry about viruses for that. But she said that they were able to upgrade manually each Chromebook that was affected by that, so that the virus protection of the Chromebook is still there.
I think it's the Acer 730.
Is that a large number? Because that sounds like a lot.
731s and
Well, it's like 100.
738s as well. Okay.
It's like 100, right?
No, there's more than that.
Some more than
There's
that.
162 738s.
There you
And
go.
they will
And
have, the students will have to bring those in and then,
They don't even update them anymore.
They've been done.
They're obsolete.
They've already been updated.
okay.
She manually updated.
She manually updated
They
those.
all.
Yes.
Right, but I mean, won't that have to happen again if,
That's the last update they can get.
okay,
It's kind of like, when Microsoft quit supporting
okay.
something.
So the clock is kind of ticking on them.
It's,
Well,
yeah,
it's ticking.
it's gone. I mean, clock expired. We can use them.
I think the
Wow,
way
they're
she
there.
talked though, that last upgrade is they were able to do it manually. It wasn't an automatic upgrade like some of the other Chromebooks
Right.
do. However, that's the last upgrade that Chromebook can get, even manually.
Okay,
So virus wise, I don't know. If you're inside here and you're inside the firewall at our school, it's one thing, but they take them home, use them on their Wi-Fi's at home, whatever.
No idea what's here.
I don't know how good a firewall is.
our firewall's good.
Okay, JD says it's good.
Am I right, Kelly?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, Kelly's back there. Did I misrepresent anything? Did I cover it?
Yes. Yeah, you did
You did good. I typed really fast. And I think that was everything. Can we think of anything else, Sue? It was a very productive meeting. Thank you, Kelly, for everything. It was, very informative.
How long did that take to make really update all of this?
Years. We had, Justin Campbell did it, the network administrator, and he had like 10 jump drives and he was just, had them lined up and was just one right after the other. It went quick, but those were the 500 that we pulled in and replaced this
Gotcha.
summer.
Okay.
We're using those for loaners, and we also had to add 110 Chromebooks down in the primary because of the student numbers are going up so much. So,
And we did buy 500 new ones this year, new Chromebooks.
Right, that we had previously kind of identified, right?
Yeah, we bought 350 last year for the K2, then 500 in March. So,
Okay.
So does basically every child have one then?
yes, we're 1-1.
One.
Anything else? All right. Legislative liaison report, are they doing anything, Mr. Renier?
No, there's nothing significant to report this month, so.
Thank you.
Sorry, if I had thought ahead, I would have emailed.
No, that's fine.
you.
The
That's
state has a huge surplus.
Yes. Yeah, once they decide what to do with it, it'll be very interesting. That's gonna be.
Exactly. I mean, they're holding cash.
Okay. Well, then we're on to new business. First item, approved technology disposal list of outdated equipment, which is kind of what we talked about. Is there a motion? Justin moves. There's a second. Sue seconds. And again, it's attachment 2, which is that big long list of Chromebooks, iPads, and things that have been accumulating over the course of the last hours and years.
I do have a dumb question, sorry. Before we dispose of them, like, is there anything that they get wiped? Like, there's no way
Yeah,
that somebody
the
can dig
iPads
through the
will.
trash? Okay,
because we will remove them out of our DEP.
gotcha. Cool. I kind of figured, but I just had to ask.
I asked to.
Okay, that's fair. I feel better now.
I didn't think it was a stupid question.
No.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes. Item 2, approve playground project bid with Kinetic Recreation. Base bid in the amount of $497,967. Equipment bid to Snyder Recreation, amount of $47,950. Head Start equipment relocation, the amount of
It
$7,500.
should be 7,500. Yes.
Which is attachment 3. Is there a motion? So moved. Second.
Attachment 3 in the addendum or
I was just
attachment
gonna
3
say
in
the
the
same
regular
thing.
one?
Original.
I go straight from attachment 2 to the,
And I'm looking for those.
Financial
I'm not
report.
seeing them.
There's,
I actually have a 3 in mine.
oh, you know what? Okay, it's one page, yeah.
It's just one
stuck
page.
to the
I mean,
end,
that's not a
okay.
lot. It's basically the
That
same
makes
numbers
sense.
that are on the.
Pages were sticking.
I still need a second, I guess, yeah.
Oh.
I think you moved it. Did you move it?
Susan?
Susan did, all right, Robin, second. Discussion.
Okay.
wait, just-
Can you tell
Darren,
us
can you explain a little bit how these numbers came to be?
Yeah, because these are exactly what are they gonna do?
Good.
So, which question?
Do the dollar
Can we
amount.
do the numbers first?
So we had,
See these numbers here.
as you can see, we had 3 bidders submit pricing. And in the immediate follow-up interviews with the bidders, typically we touch base with each bidder to make sure that now that the numbers are visible and known to all, we make sure they're comfortable with their number. Was there anything that was identified during the bid opening process that they thought they might have not included? So you kind of do that, hey, how do you feel about your number conversation? In that conversation, Playground Equipment Services let me know that they mistakenly did not include the actual equipment number in the base bid. It was clearly identified to include equipment in the base bid. There was also an additional option to price just the equipment to give us some flexibility about packaging and lead times. So with that, in essence, they withdrew their bid, so to speak. And if they wouldn't have withdrawn on it, they still would have been the high bidder in that. So given the information that was relayed back to us in their documents, we also asked for information about lead time for equipment, because different vendors with supply chain are seeing lead times anywhere from 4 months to a year. And with our, wanting to get this project completed sooner than later, potentially even this fall during Fair Week, we weigh the information about lead times versus cost versus, getting the playground, completed. So with that, we took the base bid amount from Connecticut, which was $543. Their lead time for equipment pushed us into next year. The lead time for the equipment from Snyder is this fall. So with that, we chose to exercise the option to have Kinetic withdraw the equipment number from their bid. So 543 minus the 45,000, which gave us the 497.
967.
And then we took that 45,000 and change refund basically from Connecticut, and we're going to apply that towards the 47,000 Snyder number. So we're purchasing the equipment from Snyder in an effort to get it in this fall. Kinetic will do all of the other work, including the install of Snyder's equipment, still delivering a full warranty. And this is something that these vendors do from time to time, is install each other's equipment. So that's how you arrive.
Generous when you say from time to time. I think it's a little more rare than you make it out to be, because I'm curious how you got them to do that. But that's fantastic.
A lot of planning.
That's fantastic, yeah.
So by doing that, you're saving just the 14,000? Is that the difference in the final bid and on the far right-hand side of that? Because the final bid is 550,000 versus 564.
So the total is actually including the alternate $7,500 to move the Head Start equipment. So right now we're talking just base bid. So you have to identify who is the best bidder, it's not always lowest, but the best bid.
That's my point.
Once you identify who the best bid is, then you can execute the alternates on top of that.
So you're saying that Kinetic is the best person to do the job, in your opinion, and that Snyder doesn't mind at all selling us their equipment for Kinetic to install?
Correct.
Okay.
And those two numbers come to 545, 917.
Right. So even though the equipment's slightly more expensive with Snyder, $2,000, we get it significantly sooner.
Exactly.
So Snyder was a year now?
Yes. Push the project into June of 23.
Because they just didn't have the manpower to do it, I'm assuming. Because if they've got the equipment, then it has to be manpower.
Well, the equipment was the lead time problem.
So it wasn't Snyder, then it was Kinetic that had the.
It was Kinetic's equipment that was going to push Kinetic into, if we would have given them the total package, it would have pushed the project into June of next year.
Yeah.
So we wanted to be able to still move forward potentially and purchase equipment that we need. So we were able to kind of be creative in the way we worded the bid documents to be able to do that.
So, I guess I haven't seen the specifics of this bid, and maybe I missed it and we have it somewhere. Yeah, you don't have it. Okay, so is Kinetic the one that did the one that's in on 22 at Hunter Trace? Is that the same company?
Not sure. So they did, all vendors supplied references that, we check. And I don't think that project was listed on.
I was just curious, because I know people had talked about.
Maybe, I don't know if one of the local ones, you guys
I think it was
know.
Snyder.
I think it was Snyder that did that one.
Yeah.
It's Snyder out of Cincinnati.
Okay,
Yeah, it was Snyder.
but
Yeah,
that
so
will
it
be
was
the base of the playground, like there are bases in there? And then
Yes.
are we getting all new playground equipment?
So the basic scope of work here would be to remove all of the existing mulch from both playgrounds. And we're purchasing 2 new equipment items for Mr. Rosovic's playground that are a little more inclusive with ADA needs in mind. We are going to relocate the 3 items on the Head Start playground behind this building to Miss Fraley's playground. And there's also some additional musical equipment that we purchased separately from this project from Snyder to be installed during this project. We're also removing all of the mulch from that playground, putting in any necessary drainage underneath the surface. We're bringing in compacted limestone for a subgrade base, and then the poured in place rubber at a 4-inch depth, uniform across both playgrounds.
And then at the K2, they have quite a bit of cement out there on the playground. Is that going to be replaced with this new, whatever it is, or that's gonna stay?
That's not
that'll
staying.
stay.
However, we're making the green space larger by expanding it, moving the fence closer to the sidewalk on Loop Street.
But the current cement stuff will
Yes.
stay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
because I just know kids fall on it and whatever. And if they fall on the rubber, it's much easier than if they fall on
Yes.
cement.
And the equipment that's being moved, does that get like certified in some way, or is
Yeah, so
there?
we asked for, in the bid documents, we asked for a full CPSI certification
Okay.
and inspection.
Yeah, because
And
I know
that was
from an
included in their
insurance-
cost.
Yeah, from an insurance standpoint, I know there's a little bit of like a liability whenever you take that stuff apart, and then put it back together. It's got to be done by someone that's certified, and they have to probably,
Right.
you know.
So all 3 bidders have somebody on staff, some of the multiple people that have that certification, and they included in their price to give us a certificate that says these playgrounds have been, inspected and are in compliance. Cool.
And we're expecting they can get both of the playgrounds done while we're off on fair break.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, it doesn't rain. it
Anything could
doesn't
happen,
snow.
and we've talked about, the possibilities of something happening. I've completed a lot of these projects where the vendor says, hey, the equipment will be here in 10 weeks, and then they call in 9 weeks and say, hey, it's going to be 3 more.
Oh, yeah.
So
No, I get
you're
that.
still at the mercy of the vendor,
Oh, yeah, of course.
so.
I just didn't know how many days this type of project would take.
But
How many
Darren,
work
Darren, we're still good on Mrs. Fraley's?
Yes,
Because we got all the equipment here for that
Yes.
already.
right, so since Miss Fraley's
It's a
playground,
complicated one.
yeah, her playground actually we're not going to be waiting on any new equipment.
Oh, nice. Okay.
We know we did order these smaller musical items. They should be here around the start of school. So the only other items we would be moving would be the Head Start items, and then we can go ahead and move forward with hers.
So they'll get theirs first. Got it.
So where is Kinetics? Okay, so we think Snyder was out of Cincinnati. I was just curious.
They have offices across the Midwest. I think the Michael Snyder that we dealt with was actually from Akron,
Yes,
Chardon.
North Burlington.
Okay, yeah.
North Burlington. And then the playground company that did the Hunter Trace, I have Matt Kristen's email from Mr. Rosovich, was DWA Recreation, otherwise known as Game Time,
Mhm.
a play core company. And that company's actually out of Alabama, but the DWA Recreation is out of Cincinnati. I have the bids here if you'd like to inspect them or look at them, which has all the information about the different companies in them.
I want to see what it is.
Their headquarters is in Indiana.
Oh, okay. So they're gonna be what? So you get some really cool stuff.
We're gonna give they'll have a ramp with a platform, and then they'll have the rocker is one of the items. And the other item is the wheelchair, or the student can go into the circle area, and that can be a spinner, so it could be, put it in there and it can be spun.
It's going to be a pretty neat, inclusive setup.
Yeah, it sounds exciting.
The port in place.
And are we officially deeming it Mrs. Fraley's and Mr. Ross and just playground?
The plaque will be in next week.
I think what you find out is maybe that Mrs. Fraley whines a little bit better than Mr. Ross.
All right, any other discussion? All right, roll call.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mr. Sharps.
Yes. All right, discussion items. First item is the superintendent pro tem.
Mr. Edwards, you want to talk to that, please?
So just in the conversation we had about, usually that comes up on one of the agendas here, July, August. So I had this question about the appointment of the superintendent pro tem. I had not seen that previously, like on an annual basis being named. There's like specific criteria of when that is to be named. So my question was, are you wishing to go ahead and name that even though the conditions for naming that haven't been met? Another piece is, speaking with Mr. Dennis, in-house, I know at one time, Mr. Dick said that there was a principal in-house that had a superintendent licensure, and that's who they used in the case of superintendent pro tem. And Mr. Dennis has a superintendent's licensure, so he has agreed to act in that role if needed. So just a little bit about the background of when that is appointed. It was my understanding that it was in the case that only after certain conditions of incapacity are met, that's whenever the superintendent pro tem is named.
I am all about having it in-house. It's been unfortunate that we haven't had somebody for the last several years and we've had to use the ESC. And I'm not a fan of that. If we have somebody in-house, I'd rather have it here.
So I guess the discussion point is twofold. One, that we discussed that Mr. Dennis would be the person that would assume that role if needed. The second piece is that it wouldn't be acted upon until the items to necessitate the need for that the conditions are met. So it's just kind of not an action item, but it's a understanding that that's where we would go.
I think that we do name the superintendent.
Yeah, I seem
Yeah,
to
we
remember.
do
that.
we
I don't-
need to?
That's what I think
That's what
Dr. Edwards asking is, do we want to name it regardless or wait till we need it?
Oh, I see what you mean. Do we want
Yes.
to just, on like an annual basis?
Or
do
We
we?
do it on an annual basis. It is in January, but we usually.
No, we usually do it in August or
Is
July.
it, I knew
Yeah.
some month we do.
But if we don't need it,
Right.
it's like having a super, or like even a sub on call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
So we just
We
call
need
it.
to name it.
So the policy says, should the superintendent become incapacitated, then the board appoints a superintendent pro tem. Meet the certificate rights. The appointment is made by a majority vote of the board only after the conditions related to incapacity are met.
So my thought process on this would be, if we don't just name that individual in advance, we're gonna end up having to have a special meeting, right, to name a superintendent pro temp should those conditions be met. So given the timeliness of maybe possibly needing to have that person able to take effect in that role, wouldn't it be better to just say in advance, this is who would step in?
I think it needs to be in advance because you don't want to be, God forbid, something happened to your superintendent and you be without somebody until you could get your board, the criteria of the board meetings and so many
People on
days. And
vacation or whatever.
that's just crazy. Yeah, because we've always named someone in the past.
I don't see harm in it, right? Or is there, I mean, is there anything that either of you would say that would, that
Nothing happens. It's just-
sway to that? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you think of anything, feel free to email us.
Can we put that on the agenda for next?
Yes, we can put that on the agenda for the August meeting.
Okay, so you were concerned about thinking of possibly a special board meeting, but if we did designate somebody that's this superintendent pro tem,
Mhm.
and the superintendent becomes incapacitated, don't we still have to meet to take action?
Yes.
You'll still have to declare him incapacitated, like you can't.
I mean,
Mhm.
so,
It's a board action to say, the superintendent, like when Mr. Dick had surgery,
Right.
he wasn't necessarily incapacitated for a period of time that
Right.
would preclude him from still being superintendent, like we didn't. We wouldn't just,
I guess I didn't realize you'd have to have a meeting anyway.
Yeah,
You're
because
better off
that's
to
what-
designate that person now, so that person is aware that the expectation of the board is if the superintendent is incapacitated, you are going to be our go-to person. I thought you had to be somebody like that.
Did you read from our policy? Is that what that says?
Yeah, policy is a state law.
that would be my next
Okay.
thing is we would need to amend the policy such that it's what we were doing. We shouldn't have a policy that says we're doing one thing and then we're doing something different.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
But doesn't the policy say that we do it if needed?
Yeah, so the policy says only after the conditions are met, and then like ORC says if the board determines the superintendent is incapacitated in such a manner that is unable to perform the duties, then that's whenever they name it. And I can send out some more information to you all as well.
Sounds good.
That's what we call it, discussion.
Yeah.
Because of the time, if it would be a big period of time, just because we had a superintendent pass away without a pro tem in place,
Hmm.
and the board had a meeting, because part of that too is the compensation for someone to act pro tem, because it's not a day or 2 days,
Right.
it's like 2 or 3 weeks until you can get an interim.
Well, but for
So,
me, to
yeah.
Robin's point, that's all the more important, I feel like, that you identify that individual and that individual.
That they know.
That they know and are agreeable, because what you don't want to do is all of a sudden you need it, and then you're like, hey, can you? And they're like, no, not really,
Can they decline anyway? if we designate?
I suppose. Seems to be. Seems to be
Could, but if they're
perfectly.
accepting and acknowledging that, then they probably would not.
It's America, I guess. Lord help us. All right.
Next item there is the OU after school program.
So with the OU collaborative for the tutors at the pre-K2 building, we have established who the graduate fellow will be. So Allie Roberts has accepted that position. She did some hours already at Amanda-Clearcreek in her undergrad. Like I said, she is a licensed teacher and she will be working with us as a graduate fellow. So with speaking with Mrs. Pinkstock and Mrs. Fraley, we would like, there's about 80 to 100 students that she would like to target for that program. We could open it up more than just the 80 to 100 students, but really there's about 80 to 100 that we were wanting to focus to get involved in the after-school program. We would be provided with 6 tutors. Those tutors are junior level undergraduate students that are going into education from OU Lancaster. And working with the professor at OUL that is the collaborative professor, she thinks that we may be able to get more than 6, but we have at least 6 that will be able to work that. We're looking at running that program 3 days a week, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday after school. And the tutoring would be from approximately 3:10 to 4:40 is the time frame that we're looking at. With that, there is the graduate fellow that's going to be helping supervise. We have her 20 hours per week in the building to work either during the school day and or during the after school program. There is I feel like there's an administrative piece that we need to put with that to have some consistency from the day program to the after school program. So I feel like we should have conversations with Mrs. Fraley about that additional responsibility that she would be taking on for the after school program and making sure that not only there are issues during the after school program, but also to make sure that those students get home. So we're looking at needing a third routing to route those students home after the after school program. So dividing down the district to 3 to 4 buses that would divide those students that stay in the after school program to route those after the primary elementary route. They get back, then they would take home the students from the after school program. So essentially divide the district up into either thirds or quadrants and have established areas to run that third busing route. I would also like with that to open that up to 2 to 4 teachers that would assist in that after-school program as well. So we would have the grad fellow, we would have the undergraduate students, and we'd also have potentially a few of our teachers helping with that after-school program. Again, all of this goes back to the main goal of improving the literacy in the pre-K2, getting those students off to a good start to impact their future education careers. Mrs. Freeman?
Yeah, I think this is just another layer of support that we can put in place for our students. We have a lot of kids that go home and families are busy. Parents are working. There's lots going on. If we can provide something after school where our kids are reading every single night, 3 out of 5 nights, and then doing it at home on other nights as well, I think we're just setting them up for success.
A couple of things I wanted to add into that was, one, the tutors that will be in the building will also be placed there for their field experiences. So they'll be working with our students in the field experiences for their undergrad classes, as well as being paid tutors within the primary building. Of course, that automatically adds in the possibility of substitutes if they don't have certain days they're able to sub. Additionally, just like we talked about a little bit ago with the lack of applicants for some positions, hopefully that will give them a good experience in our schools that they will want to be able to come back.
And then since it's an after-school program, do we have something set up with the cafeteria to give them a snack? Because everybody, when you're done with your workday, whether it's a school day or work day, you need a snack.
Whether you're a kid or an adult, right?
It doesn't matter.
Everybody needs a snack after school. Yes, that is something that we're looking at as well.
Okay.
Yes. So the idea would be they would start with a snack and then kind of do more
Snack.
smaller things.
That's not a snack or a snack.
A snack and then
A
a
snack and then do more smaller things.
So now would these kids be kids that you've identified and you've invited to this program and then the parents would accept it or decline it?
Yes,
Is that
we're
how
still
that works?
working out how we're gonna do it
Details.
exactly, but the focus is gonna be on those REM kids
Gotcha,
that need that additional support.
gotcha.
Um,
Okay, and this is pre-K?
It would be
or just
K through 2.
K through 2, okay. Got it.
So potentially, right now, what we have penciled in is a start date after Labor Day, so September 6th, and then run approximately 90 days. So we would start a little bit after the school year starts and then shut it down on May 11th, so that gives us a little bit before the end of the school year. But 90 days of an extra hour and a half of instruction.
That's huge. When you first said after school, I think a lot of parents will think, I can leave my kids there instead of sending them to the babysitter. Are we gonna give it some kind of snazzy name?
Well, that was my question too, as to whether, well, Robin asked, what my question was, these are kids that will be identified.
Yeah.
It's not an option where parents can say, yeah, I want my kid.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
If they
Now, I'm
do
hoping
after
our fellow will have a really, I think, the input of the fellow will give a snazzy name. I think we want kids to be excited to come, that we don't want them to look at like, oh man, I've got to stay here because I'm not doing well or things like that. We want them to know that we're here to support them. It's just here to help them grow. So, yes, I like a snazzy name. Be thinking on that.
I think, didn't the after school at West call it that some kind of academy?
I don't
West
know.
School, like.
I don't know, when I hear after
Time
school,
was
that just
something
means I don't have to
academy.
send my kid to the babysitter, I can let him.
Yeah,
there,
not
so
latchkey. I think
Yes,
you're right. A lot of people
yes,
think
there
after
you go.
school latchkey.
That's exactly what I was
X
thinking.
that, but,
But I-
yes,
Boost.
boost.
And I think, if I'm thinking the same page here,
Ooh.
obviously we have 80, let's say 75 to 85 students identified, and if only 40 parents agree, then I think we're gonna go after the next 40 kids, am I right?
Exactly. The
So-
idea is gonna be to stay full.
Yes.
We've got the resources. We wanna make sure kids are getting the support they need.
And we have a grant to pay for it, correct?
For which portion? So it would, the fellow, not all of it. So the fellow, the tutors, that is all covered.
Okay.
So what would be that additional routing of the busing, because no transportation could be written into the grant. Snacks, and then there's some supplies that are written into the grant, but we may need other supplies that we can pull from the
And what
pay
about
students.
those teachers that you talked about?
Those would not be covered, that would, we'd have to provide that.
This still seems pretty value added though.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm not.
I think, I'm sorry, the whole idea is behind the fact that we realize we have a literacy problem, and this is one more way to, I guess, for the back of it, make Mr. Borosovich's life better. So that.
that's all about this guy right
That's all we
here.
really care about, because if, obviously, the less third grade students to remediate, the better off we're going to be, so.
And ultimately, we just want to create students that feel good about what they bring to the table. We want them to know when they walk into a room that they are valued and that they know what they're doing.
All right, anything else on that item? Third discussion item is website update.
So if you'd like, we can give you a little bit of information. So Kelly has been heavily involved in a lot of technology items, activities, one of which has been the website update. So we approved the contract with Final Site, so we've made a lot of movement on that so far. I have, Kelly, do you want to bring up the smart board? And I can give you kind of a little bit of a preview, and we can talk about some things. Again, the website and the communication piece came out of a lot of the discussion at the strategic planning meeting was about communication and information that's being pushed out. In addition to that, there was conversation about the athletics app. So it was also brought to me about, okay, is there an app that can be push out school information? So that's what sent us on the road looking at Final Site. So Final Site kind of gives us a one-stop shop. Instead of having to update information multiple different places, then there's one place, one app, one way that we can push the information out. So using this, so some of the things we've done so far. Maybe, did I do it? Okay.
Wait for it.
Wait for it. It's anticipation.
Come in.
Anticipation.
There we go.
Okay. So one of the things we submitted was a theme. So this is, of course, this is not the website, but this gives you an idea of kind of what the theme will look like. So we have, you know, of course, drop-down menus. You can see kind of the color scheme. And there's a part right here that you kind of give of either an introductory video or a history video. I'll show you an example in a minute.
I want it to be in English.
Yes. And in addition, the social media feeds will automatically feed here on the home page. And then you can have a section down at the bottom to highlight specific areas. You'll notice over to the right, there are kind of quick buttons. So we've identified what these quick buttons will be. There's, you know, a calendar, so we can automatically input iCal feeds that will feed into the calendar. There's portal logins, so staff, if there's certain things we want to put behind a staff login, then staff members can log in there.
Will we have access as the board to board policies?
So the board policies will still run through board docs. So that would be a link on the webpage
So I can click here.
and go there, yeah.
So, and the public can do that too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right, which I think is,
Exactly.
yeah.
So part of the conversation was push notifications. So on the sheet that I gave you, you can see at the very top, boxed in, it says district, AC primary, AC elementary, AC middle, AC high, athletics, and alumni. Each of those are set up as schools, and you can select within the app to receive notifications from a school. So you'll notice that, you know, if you have a student just at AC primary and AC middle, then you can just receive notifications that are applicable to those schools. In addition, athletics is one of those. So because of the popularity of the push notifications from the athletics app, we set that up as a school so that if somebody just wants to get notifications about athletic updates, they can select, just opt into those. Of course, the last piece, we added in alumni. And that was just a result of conversation whenever I was at the Alumni Association. They even commented, the banquet, they commented that basically after the year 2000, there wasn't as many alumni involved. So maybe this is a way that we could push out, connect with those alumni that maybe would have the app that they could get notifications of specific things going on. So if you look, the first section underneath those headings is the district. So here, as you can see in this example, about us, admissions, academics, well, the headings that we put in, there was one for about us, our district, our schools, news and events, athletic, alumni, and resources. Then you can see under each, like we set up a middle school, high school on your paper, and then headings that would be under the high school page. There's a separate page for middle school, separate page for elementary, separate page for primary, and like I said, alumni athletics. All of the things on this page, the headings, the drop downs, we're able to go in and change. So we just kind of had to put in placeholders, so to speak, so that they can start building it, and then we can make it our own. I will say also up the top, district, primary, elementary, middle, high, athletics, alumni, we can also have an 8th building. So if we, in the future, figure they just put a placeholder in for us. So if there's something else that we say, hey, we would like to be able to set this up so it's a specific entity to receive push notifications, then we can set that up at a later date as well. Anything, Kelly, to add right now?
I have 2 questions.
Mhm.
One is, what is the cost of this? And number 2 is, when do you see that we would move over to this site?
Okay, so the cost is, I believe it was $15,000 a year. So whenever we looked at that,
I think
no,
it's 5
5.
for the setup and then 10
10,
a year,
yes.
which includes the app and all the stuff.
So it's 5,000 for them to build this whole website?
Mhm.
And then it's
10,000
10,000 we pay annually for them to,
to host it.
But yet we can still update it.
We have, on the back end, we have access to update everything, yes.
Put the ads out there.
our current website, what are we paying for that annually or?
So our current website it was $1,400.
Is there an annual fee for our current website?
Yeah, that's what the annual fee is, yes.
It's 1,300?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going from 1,300 to 10,000. Who here can then, or maybe it isn't anybody here, can add content to the website? Like if you want to put information on there, is that part of the 10,000?
The people with access to it. So for example, like Kelly would have access to update. We can set up a number of people that would be able to go in and edit specific sites. The other piece on top of that, going from the amount that our current website costs, you also have the addition to right now the athletic app and that annual cost. And then if we were to add another app that would be able to push notifications and communicate for school activities, then you're gonna have another cost on top of that. So
how
moving
much is-
from our current price up to the 10,000 was quite a change. But whenever we looked at the multiple pieces that we would add together to get the whole package that we were wanting, that's where it became
And how much do we
Absolutely.
pay now for the athletic website and our push notifications?
So the athletic website, the athletic app is 3,500.
3,500,
3,500 for the year?
yes, annually, and that's just for athletics.
Right.
So now you're at 40, 48, 49
Right.
with just the athletic app and our website currently.
Correct.
And then if you wanted an app that everyone could use, you'd be
What about the notices
More.
that said school's gonna be delayed?
So that's where the, and
How
if
much
you,
is that?
correct me if I'm wrong, but like, one of the beauties of this, one of the things, like, you know, I was really interested, because right now they have the text messages, right?
Yes.
Well, from, I've heard from a lot of parents, and I've experienced it some myself, where it's inconsistency with receiving them. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. That might have a lot to do with cell signal, more so than anything
No,
else,
it's
but
people in the same house, one person gets it. the
could
other
be,
doesn't.
yeah. But, you know, the other thing too is you're not able to filter those, right? So you end up getting messages that don't apply to you. Whereas with push notifications on the app, you can go in, correct me if I'm wrong, and you can customize this and say, hey, look, I'm not so concerned about the cafeteria menu for, you know, K2. I really want to know more about fill in the blank. And then having it be a single point of entry means that whoever is putting that information in, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't have to go do it in 5 different places. They can go do it in one place, and then it'll go to all of those.
So the other app,
Did we get 3 bids on this and the board, did I miss a vote? Did we approve of a new website and this funding?
We did
It's a
last.
discussion item right now, so.
But we're spending money
This is
on it
just an
now.
update.
No, we
No,
we
Oh, I thought
approved
this was
it.
a done deal. I'm like, what?
No,
did
we
I
did,
miss?
we approved the contract.
We approved the contract, yeah.
When did we do that?
I will look that up. I believe it was in the June.
so to further that conversation, whenever I looked at a third-party app, to be able to get a third-party app to push notification, that other piece, to get the Apple version and the Android version of that app, it was $4,900 to add that piece into it as well.
So we did this at the special board meeting.
I'm wondering.
Yes,
Yes.
it was. It is, Mr. Rainier
Okay.
mentioned, and it was like.
I did, we reviewed 3 different website providers.
And was that part of the board discussion? I was out of town that week. I
I
didn't
know-
know you were
I
having
know
that.
I had provided one provider, like I had actually found a site provider and submitted it. It's not this one, but, you know,
I'm just out, did we look at 3 bids and this was the winning bid? Like, how did we come up with this?
So
I'm just
we looked
concerned,
at,
$10,000 a month, that's all.
no, it's a
Jump.
year, 10,000 a year.
It's 10,000 a year.
Yes.
Mr. Dick, did we not, I can't remember where
I
we
never got any
landed with this.
information on
So the one call system that we have,
TEC.
where we could not renew that once we have this up and running.
That's correct, 'cause you can push
So
out
that's-
notification, all right, Dr. Edwards,
Like another $1,500 or something like that a year.
I think it's closer to 3.
Is it closer to 3,000? Okay.
Savings.
So that was also factored in that, because after we started adding everything up, it was like apples to apples, like everything we could get rid of.
If I could have the proposal, that would be nice. I don't believe I have that. It must have been handed out at the last board meeting, the special board meeting you had while I was gone.
so, we looked at 3 different companies, 3 different providers, and compared those.
Can I have
the
What they
amounts.
provided,
I just sent you the email that Dr. Edwards sent to me after our meeting because I had asked him, can I look at some of these examples?
Yeah, yeah.
And I just sent you that email.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
It does, I don't think it lists like it doesn't list 3 different vendors, but it certainly gives a good flavor of what he had looked at. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Actual contract. So I'll send you the-
You know, one thing too, this might be off topic, but we had identified a need for a communications director. I think it was a supplemental. Is that something that you would recommend going back to again, or?
So that
Revisiting that,
posting was, the board approved that, the creation of that position. So that was posted. I've received applications for that position, and that hasn't been selected yet.
Okay, but would that individual obviously be a key stakeholder? in
They'd be a
this?
part of this, absolutely.
Yes, yes. They would have a major responsibility.
Yeah, I know there was a concern, you know, like our administrators have a lot on their plate already. So to ask them to turn around and say, take additional time, more time, adding content does not seem, you know, feasible, equitable. So,
Whenever we talked about that position, we talked about that essentially being the connecting point between what's happening in buildings and just gathering the information and collecting it, uploading it, correct, making updates.
What about the Facebook page? Is that something that's, admin separately from all this? I mean,
Well, there was a link in
It gets pushed out automatically, am I right, Dr. Edwards? to
Yeah, it
Facebook,
automatically,
Twitter?
because we have the social media feeds, it automatically will upload the social media aspect.
gotcha. So,
Just like our webpage does now.
gotcha.
And it goes out to, when she pushes it out to the Facebook, the webpage, it gets pushed out to Twitter and Facebook at the same time. I don't know.
Twitter? Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, I don't have Twitter, so it doesn't matter, but I didn't.
I'm not sure she's talking about the
I know it's on
Snapchat.
Twitter, that's cool.
Oh, she got snapped or not.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else with that? All right, well, before then, we would move on to the last item, to go into executive session. I will acknowledge the fact that this is the final meeting.
Oh.
For somebody, and we've got something on the way, but Scott Isles is still finishing.
And then
Do we have more supply issues?
Tweaked it.
So I don't have the item to sit here. Hand it to
Thank you,
you.
that's fine, I appreciate it.
But the alternate thing that Lynn suggested, just so we at least have something.
We cannot bring you flowers, men do not get flowers, so in light of that, I went
Please
like.
don't make it be the answer.
No. It's,
I'd rather have Coke Zero than flour.
I was like, what would Mr. Dick appreciate? Then I found out we were on the team. So I was like,
and it is a very good thing that's on the way, but it's just not there.
When we hand deliver it, we'll get a picture.
Okay, sounds good.
So anyways, obviously very much appreciate the many years of service, and multiple,
Yes.
10 years, so.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, with that, we will move on to motion to go into executive session. Justin moves.
I'll say to adjourn, correct?
Executive session.
I moved to
Oh, okay.
motion to executive session,
Okay.
which I'm not sure will take too long.
Okay.
And then we'll adjourn. All right. 2 seconds, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mrs. Song?
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
You take mine?
Cut off.
Yes, sure.
No.
Oh. Well, then you carry on, but I'm taking mine.